Well, it's still very, very early in the season, but this was a very, very important big victory for Arsenal. 3-1 against Manchester United when all seemed like it was going to be a point apiece for Arteta and Eric Ten Hag. But the Gunners get those 3 points. A really exciting game, a fun game, of course, between the Gunners and the Red Devils. Luis Miguel Echegaray will have Mark Ogden Oggy joining us later on. Maybe James Ollie. He's at the Emirates, but could be a bit loud right now. But right now we have Stevie Nicol. Stevie, straight away, your initial reaction. It looked like it was going to be a draw, a point apiece, but in the end, Arsenal come away with 3 points.
It kind of seems that the only thing to talk about is the last, 10 to 15 minutes, because what happened before that seems to kind of pale into insignificance. I mean, Man United, to me, looking as though they were going to get a 1-1 draw. Defensively, they did well. Arsenal, always the team that were pushing forward. Scored one, probably should have had a couple more. Saka should have scored. Havertz should have scored in the first half. And it seemed as though it was going to sort of die as Nacho goes through. Seems to have won the game for United. He's offside by the smallest margin, but nevertheless, he's offside. And then, of course, Arsenal end up getting 2 late goals and win 3-1. So on paper, it looks like a comfortable win, but I mean, what an ending. This was just crazy.
Yeah, I think you're spot on, my friend. I think it was really the last 15 minutes of the game that really told the eventual story. But there was a lot going on in this game, as you mentioned at the beginning. So let's just walk through some of the biggest talking points. Arsenal looked very good at the beginning, but against the run of play, Manchester United opened the scoring. Marcus Rashford 1-0. 110 seconds later, Arsenal equalized. It was 1-1. Let's talk about the first big talking point, which was that penalty that didn't happen. Kai Havertz got the ball, drove into the box. It looked like Aaron Wan-Bissaka had fouled him, but then VAR comes in, the ref comes in, goes and looks at the screen. It has to be clear and obvious. What did you think? Because it was overturned and not a penalty.
Well, I'd love to know why it was overturned. From a defensive point of view, when Wan-Bissaka tries to make a challenge on Havertz and misses, and then he gets his legs tangled up with Havertz, because Havertz, in my opinion, is just running through, and Wan-Bissaka's right leg, I believe it was, ends up making contact with Havertz. And so for me, it's a penalty kick. And so, again, as a defender, in my opinion, it's up to me to get out the road of the attacker, particularly when I'm on the wrong side and he's gone past me. So I'd be interested to know why it was disallowed. Does the referee just think that Havertz lost his balance? Because if he sees contact, or if he doesn't give the penalty, he must be thinking Havertz has dived. So I'd love to know which one it is. Has he dived? In that case, he should have had a yellow. Or has he just fallen over? And I'm going to guess that Taylor's going to say he lost his balance and there was nothing else, and that's why he didn't give a penalty kick. Has to be. It can be the only solution.
Yeah, that was my biggest quandary then. When it was overturned and it wasn't a penalty, why didn't Kai Havertz see a yellow? Because supposedly you're thinking that means that he simulated something. And then to the other point as well was, I think that sometimes, Stevie, when the ref looks at the VAR and you look at things over and over again in slow motion, I think it tells a different story to what actually happened. And to your point, if Wan-Bissaka had not been there, Kai Havertz probably wouldn't have fallen there because it would have been like a clear path for a goal. But because he was there, he impeded his run, meaning, Stevie, that it should have been a penalty, I think.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm trying to figure out why it's not a penalty, as opposed to the other way around.
Right.
So, yeah, I think it's a penalty kick. But it wasn't given. And again, we'll be interested to know what they actually come out and give us a reason, hopefully, which I doubt they will, as to why it wasn't given.
Yeah, hopefully we will hear that. And obviously we have our very own Dale Johnson on ESPN as well, who surely will note about it on ESPN.com. But anyway, it was 1-1 to that point. The game went back and forth a little bit. Manchester United seemed to get a better grip, of course. And then it was like the Leicester City of old towards the end. Stevie Nicol, Harry Maguire and Johnny Evans were playing centre back for Manchester United. That was an interesting one as well. And then 1-0, Manchester United seemed to get a break on the counter. Garnacho gets off and scores, but again, it's overturned to offside. Correct call there?
Yeah, I think so. Which is a shame for Garnacho, because he took it like a veteran. Made his run through, the ball's played through. It looked as though he had timed it to perfection, and great composure from the young man. Picked his spot and rolled it past Ramsdale, and all of a sudden you're thinking, this is an absolute smash and grab, because I think United came for a point. They didn't come to go and win this game. They came to be tight and then try and hit on the break. And so for that reason, you got to say that Arsenal probably deserved the win. But I'll tell you what, when that ball hit the back of the net, I don't think anybody, whether it be the crowd, the coaching staff, or Arsenal as a team, were thinking this was anything other than a 2-1 loss. But VAR came to the rescue. They got it right. He was a hair's breadth offside, but nonetheless, he's offside. And of course, that meant the scoreline went back to 1-1, which again made us think this is going to end up being a draw.
That's what we thought. And then in stoppage time, Arsenal earn a corner, and Declan Rice, unmarked, by the way, an open Declan Rice from the far post, his first goal for Arsenal after making that massive signing from West Ham, makes it 2-1, and pandemonium at the Emirates as they go 2-1. A pretty good finish. There was a little bit of a deflection, Stevie. I mean, Onana really couldn't be blamed for that one, but he was pretty open in that corner.
Well, yeah, I mean, the ball's come all the way across, and so if that's the case defensively, you've got to move with the ball. So I think Johnny Evans was the closest to it, but he was having a bit of a tussle with Gabriel, so he couldn't get there. Nobody else made an attempt to get out. And unfortunately for Johnny Evans, it's come off the underside of his foot, which is why it's made it difficult for Onana. You're absolutely spot on. You can't point your finger at Onana. It's just a shot that's been ricocheted, and he couldn't quite react in time. So it's an awful start for Johnny Evans. Imagine running on the field after leaving United, 8 years previously, and you end up scoring an own goal. What an absolute disaster for him personally.
Yeah, absolutely right. But anyway, Arsenal with a 2-1 lead, and then Manchester United, of course, keep on pushing, and in the end, come away with a 3-1 victory thanks to Gabriel Jesus' break. A really lovely finish, of course, making it 3-1. Arsenal, 3 points. Very, very big win. Let's bring in now, Stevie, our boys, Mark Ogden, Augie, and James Ollie as well from the Emirates. We've got a packed group here. Lovely to see you, boys. James Ollie, let's begin with you. Give me your overall reaction from this very important win. As I mentioned in the intro, yes, it's September. Yes, there's a lot of football still left to be played. But these are the kind of victories that are really needed for Arsenal if they want to keep track with Manchester City.
Yeah. When you consider how they started last season, they got 50 points at the halfway stage and still didn't win the league. I understand from a sort of neutral perspective, or from an outsider's perspective, why it might look like they over-celebrate results like this. But I think it's because they know, if they draw today, as absurd as this is to talk about after 4 games, they'd be 4 points behind City going into the first international break. And, you can't allow City to go and build a lead and get ahead of everybody else, because they just don't slow down. They peak in the second half of the season. So I think that's why they celebrated the Palace win so hard, even though they weren't great. I think that's why they felt so dejected when they drew against Fulham last weekend. And scoring 2 goals in the last, in stoppage time as they did here in any game will make everybody go nuts. But I think it's that's the sort of root cause of these celebrations. And, they know as mad as it is, they cannot afford to fall behind City early on, and securing a victory like that will only give them self-belief going into the autumn that they can go toe-to-toe with City, which is what they expect to do this season.
Yeah, a very big win for Arsenal. But Mark Ogden, Augie, Manchester United, after losing to Tottenham, they get a nice comeback win against Nottingham Forest. But now they thought that maybe, and maybe all of us thought, including Stevie and I, thought that maybe it was going to end as a 1-1 result. But in the end, Arsenal come away with a 3-1 victory. Just your overall reactions over Erik ten Hag's Manchester United, because there's a lot going on off the field as well. But what did you see from them today against the Gunners?
Yeah, I don't think they were massively convincing. I think it was one of those away performances where United struggled to hold on at times. And I think it really changed when Hoyland came on, and it just gave a lot of work rate up front, a bit of aggression, and it enabled the midfielders to kind of have a platform to play forward. And I think he did change the game. And when Garnacho burst through, it looked like United had snatched a win, and it was a very tight offside. But obviously VAR got it right, even though it's by millimetres. But I think the overall scoreline doesn't reflect on the way United played later in the second half. I think a draw would have been a fair result. But like you say, it's a defeat at Tottenham, a defeat at Arsenal, and last year they had one win against the top 10, just the one win. I think they had 8 defeats. So this away form is going to cost them. Well, they're not going to win the league this season. Let's be honest. They're already 6 points behind City, but it could cost them a top 4 spot. So they really need to address that away form. But it did look like in the last 20 minutes they'd found a way. They'd found a way to, to get a result. But United aren't convincing right now. They look like a team that's still finding its feet, finding its way. And but we've been saying that for 6, 7, 8, 9 years.
Yeah, Stevie, let me just keep going from that point. Like, where do we put the blame here? Is the international break the perfect thing right now for Erik ten Hag? Do you think that can help a little bit? Like, where do you see United going this season from what you've seen already?
Well, no, I don't think this international break helps them because Ten Hag has to find a way of getting his team together and getting some fluidity. I mean, going forward, you really don't know what you're going to, other than let's find Rashford wide on the left. You don't know where United are going to hurt you because there's nothing coming from Antony's side. They're really not getting an awful lot through the middle of the park. So right now, since the season started and well into last season, it seems like Marcus Rashford is the only outlet that they're going to produce anything from. So this is a situation where Ten Hag has to sort it out on a training field and try and get some fluidity and some movement. Because other than that, they just look like a mid-table side that are going to go away to places like Arsenal and defend and try and get something on the break. Now, if it works, it works. But this is Manchester United, and this is not what you expect from Manchester United. That's just the bottom line. I'm sure Augie will tell you more about that than me. But yeah, going forward, I have no idea what they're trying to do other than get the ball to Marcus Rashford, because there doesn't seem to be any other sort of pattern.
Yeah. Augie, we're getting some questions in. Obviously, thank you so much for joining ESPN FC Live, Stevie Nicol, James Ollie, Mark Ogden. But Augie, we've got a good question here. I was making fun of it a little bit ago, but it is the truth. I mean, the game ended with Johnny Evans and Harry Maguire at the back still. How can Manchester United invest so much to end up with those two at the back? They're asking you from who is it? Oh, they didn't even put in the name there, Augie, so they're ashamed to ask the question. But what do you think?
I think the name was Erik ten Hag, wasn't it? They sent that question. No, I mean, listen, United are in a mess because of the financial situation. They spend a lot of money, but they do actually waste a lot of money as well. But the situation at the back is fairly simple. Obviously, Rafael Varane injured. Lisandro Martinez picked up an injury, but I mean, the fact they've got Maguire and Evans at centre half shows you that the lack of resources, because to all intents and purposes, Maguire should have left this summer. He knows he's not going to play in the first team every week. He knows he's not even third choice. So had Maguire gone, it may have enabled Ten Hag to bring in a better centre half. But Lindelof has been at the club now for a good 6, 7 years and never really convinced. So they've got a lot of dead wood there, and it's hard to clear it out. And the fact they've not been able to get rid of Eric Bailly, Donny van der Beek, Harry Maguire shows you how limited these players are. So let's be honest, your centre defensive options are Varane and Martinez when fit. Now Varane picks up a lot of injuries. Martinez is becoming susceptible to injury as well. So you've got two centre halves who aren't particularly reliable fitness wise. Then your backup are a guy that he doesn't trust in Maguire, a guy who got relegated with Leicester last year. Half it looked like his legs had gone. I mean, Johnny Evans has been a great pro, but he couldn't really do much at Leicester last season. And then Victor Lindelof, who is a centre half who doesn't know how to head the ball, so that isn't a good start. And then you've got Eric Bailly, who, again, like Varane and Martinez, he's never fit or never reliable. So there aren't really many great options there. It looks to me like they've missed out on the opportunity to sign top defenders in the past, and they just had this collection of misfits, really. I mean, Steve will know better than me as a defender, but I don't think any of those defenders would give him confidence if he was playing alongside them, because all of them have their big flaws.
Yeah, Gareth Southgate seems to disagree, bringing him back to the squad. But that's for another video. Hey, James Ollie, let's talk about Arsenal for a second. The winners of today, 3-1. Even though it's a 3-1 victory, it did seem like it was going to be 1-0 for a bit. Obviously, it wasn't like all super easy for Arteta. There were a few issues, but did you see anywhere on the pitch from Arsenal's side that you think, yeah, the international break can maybe help them improve in certain areas?
Well, I think the sort of pre-match questions about, Mikel Arteta slightly changing his approach this season. Are these new signings taking them to another level as many anticipated? I think those questions are probably still there after this game. I thought it was really interesting, actually, that they let United have quite a lot of the ball. United had more possession in the first half. I think it was about 55%. And Brighton came and did that here in May, and Brighton were fantastic that day. That was not an Arsenal conscious decision. That was just a measure of how good Brighton were. But no team has done that for about 18 months other than Brighton. Has come here and had more of the ball in the first half of the Premier League game. And it felt a bit like a conscious decision from Arteta because he was concerned, as Stevie says, about the one threat really, which is Rashford in behind. And actually, if you look at the Garnacho goal, again, they get done, they lose the ball, they're high up the pitch, they get done quick turnover on transition. They seemed terrified of that, particularly in the first half, and it was quite passive from Arsenal. And I thought it was noticeable in the second half. They pushed up, they started taking more risks in possession, they started trying to get Zinchenko into those positions in midfield and try and overload, which has become the go-to tactic for a lot of these top sides now. Guardiola sort of led that initiative, and they started to take control of the game. And again, I think we're just seeing more of these kind of teething problems about with Rice coming in, with Havertz again. He had a mixed bag of an afternoon. Let's be honest. Once again, they're still just trying to work out the pieces of this puzzle. Now, look, it's 4 games in, right? So, and they've taken 10 points out of 12. They can be pretty satisfied with where they are. But are they showing the kind of fluidity and consistency to suggest that they can go and last the distance with City and get 90, 95 points, which is probably what they're going to need to win the league? You'd have to say no at the moment. But what they are getting is results, and that will be the thing that will be encouraging Arteta the most. But yeah, I mean, there is a need for fluidity. I think the 2 weeks will be important for Jesus to get him right. He's obviously come back early from that knee injury. We thought maybe he'd be out until after the international break. He's played twice again. Still not entirely convinced about Eddie Nketiah leading the line. Obviously, Leandro Trossard didn't work when he played there against Fulham. So I think that will be a notable bonus for them. But yeah, I think just another couple of weeks on the training ground working with the players that he's got, which won't be many obviously because a lot of them will be away on international duty. But I think they just need more time working on that fluidity and really trying to overwhelm teams as they did so often here. I thought that switching approach was quite interesting. A sign of caution from Arteta today.
Let's stick on that Kai Havertz point, Stevie. We got another question here. Havertz poor again, he says the comment. Should Fabio Vieira's recent substitute performances be pushing Havertz out of the 11?
Well, I think for Arteta, the fact that they're winning means that he can keep Havertz in that spot and try and get him to where or to do the things that he wants him to do. I mean, he could have been a hero. I mean, you're talking about small margins between being a hero and being a villain. He should have scored in the first half, but probably the way things have been going, that lack of composure is why he ends up whiffing on it. He could have been the hero, should have been a penalty kick. So listen, whilst Arsenal are still winning, you can be sure that Arteta is going to stick with Havertz because he can. Now, if they go on a run where they're not picking up points, then there might be pressure on Arteta to make a change, and the change Havertz would probably be the first one. But as I said, the key is that they're winning, and whilst they're winning, Arteta absolutely is going to stick with Havertz.
You're muted, buddy. You're muted.
He's not getting involved. Sorry, guys. He's not getting involved in the games enough. Against Fulham, he had the fewest number of touches in the first half of any outfield play. And I'm just looking at the numbers today. He had 34 touches in his 77 minutes. You compare that with Martin Odegaard playing as a number 8 alongside him, 51. Declan Rice, 85. Martinelli, 66. Saka, 52 touches. These are the attacking players who are supposed to go and make a difference, and he's just not getting involved in the game enough. Now, one of the reasons he played through the middle for Chelsea was because Thomas Tuchel liked what he did without the ball, the way he pressed. It was why Lukaku didn't work. But have Arsenal really gone and spent £67.5 million on a midfielder who can press? Not really. If you were going to go and do that as your primary function, you'd have said you could go and get a player who's a specialist in that position, or maybe try and take someone like Emil Smith-Rowe, more of a natural, and try and get him to play as a number 8 rather than a number 10. So I think they've got to redefine or clarify exactly what his role is in the team and get him on the ball more, because he's just not getting involved in matches enough. And when he is, he's not making those decisive contributions. So they just need to find a way to get more out of him in the coming weeks.
Yeah, which is not all down to Kai Havertz. Mikel Arteta has to find a way, of course. But James Ollie, thank you so much for being here, my friend. I know that you got a bit of writing to do and you know, a lot of whistling and clapping. I presume it's for Arsenal, not for you to get going. So thank you so much, my friend. Get home safe as well. All right, that was James Ollie. Stevie Nichols still with us. Mark Ogden. Oggy, let's jump right back to you. Your final word from this game as we move on, specifically maybe on Arsenal and what you saw from them today. As you know, we started this show by saying that this is a big win. I mean, yes, it's early in the season, but these are the kind of 3 points that you need if you want to keep track on the top 2 in the table.
Yeah, it's a big one, and it's always important to beat your so-called rivals for the top 4 or the top 6 or even the title. So they've done that, and they've, you know, had they not won today, there would have been a few question marks about Arsenal and could they, you know, repeat what happened last season by pushing City so close. But I was chatting to James before the game. Actually, I said if you could take Man City out of the equation, I think from 2 to 10, you've got quite a close Premier League, and I think it would be quite an exciting Premier League this season. But City is so far ahead of everybody else that it's going to be another procession this year. I don't think it's too early to say that City are probably going to win the league again. I don't think I'm shocking anybody there. But Arsenal, you know, probably are the best of the rest. I think Liverpool have started well as well. But it's just important at this stage to get results and to build that momentum, because, you know, you can't go into the international break as United are with question marks. You know, United 2 wins out of 4, 2 defeats. The next game is Brighton at home. So that is a really difficult game for Man United. Then you've got Bayern Munich in the Champions League. So, you know, as we've seen with Newcastle, that if you make a bad start, it can suddenly get away with you. And then all of a sudden you're playing catch-up all season. You know, your players are losing confidence. So I think that's where United are right now. They're on this kind of brink of where do they go next. And I do think that the introduction of Rasmus Højlund will help. He brought a lot of work rate in there, a lot of aggression, totally different to what they've had for a long time with Anthony Martial. So they've actually got a focal point now, but it's whether they know how to use him, because there were a couple of instances there where, you know, Aaron Wan-Bissaka had the ball on the right-hand side, perfect chance to cross it, played it back. They're not used to having a centre forward there. So equally, they're not used to having a goalkeeper play way out of his goal. So they're having to get used to different sorts of players. I think Arsenal are further ahead of the evolution than United are. So I think they're in a much better place. They can carry a player like Havertz who's not playing particularly well, because they've got players around them that can perform. But, you know, neither team is where it wants to be right now, but Arsenal are much further ahead. And I think if it comes to a case of, you know, who's the best place to challenge Man City, it's Arsenal just ahead of Liverpool, if Mo Salah stays.
Yeah, if Mo Salah stays, and there's a few days left for that as well. Mark Ogden, thank you so much. Oggy, get home safe as well, my friend. Make sure to follow Mark Ogden on ESPN, ESPNFC, and all his written content. Thanks, Oggy. Take care, buddy.
Yes, guys.
All right. So that was Arsenal winning 3-1 against Manchester United. And my producer, Sam, has told me that Stevie must talk about Liverpool and the win against Aston Villa. So I guess we'll go from here. Stevie, I mean, a great win. A great win for Liverpool, Stevie. Go ahead. A great win. Go ahead.
Well, there was one thing that struck me about this game today, and it took me back to, this is what's supposed to happen at Anfield. Yeah. This game was Liverpool of old, where they dominate from start to finish, a comfortable 3-0 victory, nice clap, a nice celebration clap for everybody at the end, and we all go home happy with 3 points in the bag. Now, I've got to say, I think Aston Villa contributed to the downfall big time. I mean, when you are going to defend with a high line, you have to put pressure on the man on the ball. And Villa didn't do that. And so for Liverpool, it was a case of knock it around, and then whenever they could, stick it in behind, and all of a sudden you're under pressure. So from Liverpool's point of view, this was a great result, a great performance. Could have scored more. But as I said, I think big time Aston Villa contributed to their own downfall, the way they tried to defend against Liverpool.
Yep, well said, my friend. That's why they pay you the big bucks, buddy. Completely in agreement. I think it
Where's
was a
that from?
game, or at least some bucks, eh? But it was the type of game where, you know, Unai Emery had, you know, they were playing poker. He had his hand, and Jurgen Klopp knew exactly what hand Unai Emery had. Tactically speaking, Liverpool got it spot on. As you said, everybody played well. Dominic Szoboszlai is going to be an absolute star, I think, for Liverpool. But very good 3 points for Liverpool as they continue. Here's a question, Stevie. Obviously, the transfer window is over in the Premier League and most parts of Europe, but in Saudi Arabia, it continues. Let's talk about Mohamed Salah, by the way. How big of a miss would he be if, big if, everybody, I'm not trying to create headlines, if he did go and they can't now replace him?
Well, clearly, if he goes, it's going to be a loss. There's no question. You know, he's the guy that you rely on above all of your talent going forward to score the goals. So if you lose somebody like that, then it's going to hurt you. Now, if ever a team was in a position where they could maybe get away with it, it's Liverpool. The fact is that if Mo Salah goes, Liverpool have still got 4 top-class strikers for 3 spots up front. They would obviously have a rather large pot of money in the bank, which means they can go and strengthen the team. And I keep saying it, you know, no player is bigger than the club, particularly Liverpool. I mean, if there's a club that has lost so-called superstars over the last 30 or 40 years, you know, I'm talking about the likes of Keegan and Dalglish and Roche and Fowler and Owen and Torres. And I mean, there are so many, but the club will always carry on. And so, yes, it would be a blow to lose Mo Salah, but I think Liverpool would find a way of adjusting, changing the way they play slightly, and be able to make up for the loss of his goals in different ways. So it would be a loss, yes. Nobody can argue that. But you've got to think of the future. And 200 million in particular would make a big difference to this Liverpool squad and would push it forward. So it would be a loss, but I think Liverpool could handle it.
And they still have their most important asset in Jurgen Klopp, of course. But a very big 3 points for Liverpool. They're looking good early in the season. We'll have to wait and see what happens towards the end of the Saudi Pro League transfer window. For now, Mohamed Salah remains the star of Liverpool. 3 points, Stevie Nico, Luis Miguel Echegaray. Thank you for James Ollie and Mark Ogden for joining as well. By the way, we continue during the week, during the international break with all these shows and much, much more. Thank you so much for tuning in. We will see you next time. Have a fantastic rest of your Sunday. Till then, bye-bye.